Alright, so welcome back. So my name is Jesse, and in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, we're trying to do a very simple crash course on Streamlit, right? So Streamlit is a very powerful, faster way to build and share data apps. Very useful and very simple to learn. So some time ago, like long time ago, we did a crash course on Streamlit, and since then a lot of features have come. So in this wonderful tutorial, I'll be trying to do a simple crash course on Streamlit together with all the new features with Streamlit. So let's see how to work with Streamlit. So I'll go back again to our workspace, and now I'll close any running app. So in case you don't have Streamlit, you can install it with this. So pip install Streamlit, right? So that is how to install it on your system. So I'm going to install it on my system. You can see that I already have it installed. Perfect. So what are some of the things we can do with Streamlit? So we have the test element. We have in case you want to modify some tests, there is input widget that supports all the different forms of widgets for receiving input. There is support for media files. There is support for LLMs, chat elements, for designing your layout, for data elements, for working with data because it's data apps, several utilities, and then there are several features. So let's see how to work with it. So I'll go back again. Let's close this, and then we will start writing. Right. So let's check the Streamlit version we are working on. So the version is here, right? So Streamlit version. You can just go Streamlit --help to list the help information. So this is how to work it. You can activate Streamlit by entering your email. You can cache, specify the configuration, and then you can use this to run it. Okay. So in our location here, I'm going to make a directory, and I'm going to call it as Streamlit 101, right? So move into Streamlit 101, and then let's start. So I'm going to create a simple file, app.py, and then I'll open this file with VS Code. So let's open it here. As you can see, we have our file here. Perfect. So let's start with it. So to start with Streamlit, you just go with import Streamlit, right? And the conversion is to simplify it, so Streamlit as st, and that is the standard conversion. Okay, so that is all that you need. Then you can now start writing some simple code. So what I do is that in this, you can start writing it straight away, or you can put inside one function and then write it anyhow it's going to work. So let's start with the test element, right? So let's go with this. So st.test, that is the simplest. And then here we can specify the body of test, which can be any string. So this is a test. And with this option here, I can now come back to my application, to my terminal here, or I can run it from VS Code in case you want to run it from the terminal in VS Code, which is also possible. So let's bring it down here, and then I'll switch to command prompt. Perfect. So let's go back, and then I can just go run Streamlit, right? Run app.py. And this is going to run Streamlit, and it's going to start on this particular port. So you can just copy this port, and in case you need follow this link. In case you need support, you can also go back to the discussion forum, right? It's a very vibrant community. So I'll open my browser here, and I'll paste in this port. And now you see that we have this is a test, right? So what does this is a test have behind the scene? So behind the scene, Streamlit, when you write a simple code like this, as you are seeing here, Streamlit behind the scene, this is from the previous tutorial we did. So let's, so Streamlit behind the scene, this is from the previous tutorial. So in case you're curious, you can go and check it out. Okay. So behind the scene, what Streamlit is doing is that when you type this, it converts it to this nice interface. So I can just go back, inspect, and then I can select and see what is behind the scene. So if I select it, you can see that it has converted this one to its own custom format, right? With a different style, st test, with a class, and then the test is there, right? Very cool. So it does many of the things for you, so that I don't need to write all of these things behind the scene. Okay, so that is for the test element. In case I want something bigger, so st. I go with title, which is going to be this is a title. The title is h tag, right? So h tag in HTML, and then when I come here, you have this option. So source file change. You can rerun with R, can always rerun, and you can also deploy. So let's go with always rerun, and this is bigger than this one. If I inspect this here, you can see that now it is an H tag, right? So let's try the inspection, and then I'll copy this from here, and if I select it, you can see that we have the Streamlit theme here. If I click on this, you have, this is our theme, right? And it's of a different span, right? And you can see that this is a title, and it's an H1 tag, right? Very cool. So out of the box, Streamlit does so many things for you. Okay, let's go back again and then move on to another test element. So I can just go to header, which is bigger than what we had here. So this is a header, right, which is very big. And then we also have st.subheader, which is also bigger than the title, right? So this is subheader. It's not bigger than the title, it's bigger than the header, right? If I go back again, you can see the progression, right? So it is, the title is the biggest, and then followed by the header, right? Very nice. So this is some of the test element. You can also go with the super function called write, which you can write your test there. So this is a super function. This can do a lot of things, not just writing tests. It can also do a function. So in case I have a Python function, I can put it there. So print something, and it's going to return it, right? So it's a very powerful function. It's not just writing stuff. It's very powerful. Okay, that is for the test element. We can also do more. So apologies if this tutorial takes a longer time, because we'll be going through all the things that are in Streamlit. There is also support for markdown. So st.markdown, and this is very useful in case you are building an LLM app and then you want to have some markdown. So this is markdown. You can see that it's automatically going to convert this one to markdown, right? So it has italicized it to markdown. Very cool out of the box. There is also support for latest. So I can pass in a simple latest. So in case I want to have an integral, it's now just giving us our integral, right? So this is very, very cool. We can also, in case you have a JSON file, all of these are, I can just pass in my JSON file here. Let's say I have some dictionary. So this is, say, some data, and I can say this is Streamlit. You can see that automatically it has converted it to a JSON format, right? So these are all test element and data element. And the final one we can also do is that we can also do code, which is a form of data test element, but also data element. I can paste in a code here. So you have, let's say, a Python code. I can paste that code here, and then I can just say, let's say this is a print hello Streamlit. And if I go with this option here, now it has converted it to the hello test perfectly for us. So let me bring this down. Yeah, right, it has converted to hello Streamlit in a highlighted format with a syntax. In case I want to change this one, if I do automatically, but in case I want, I can specify the language behind. So you can pass in the language here. So the language was Python, but I can pass in another language, like let's say this is Julia, and now the syntax has changed to Julia. In case I pass a different language, so Golang, I don't think Golang has any, so you can specify the language with the code element, which is very useful. You can also specify that you want a line number. So by going with line numbers, you set it as true, and then you have number 1. So in case I have multiple functions, so let's say a is equal to 40, so we have different numbers there, which is out of the box. And you notice that with the just code, you have out of the box, you have an option to copy and click, which is very cool. Okay, so these are some of the nice test elements. Now let's move on from test element to our next element, which is our error element. So the error element is like the bootstrap error. So st.success will give us the bootstrap color. So I can just say this is success. And if I go back and I check it out, you can see that we have success, right? So I can also repeat st.success. there is error, because I have some error. This is error. And then you see that the color has changed. Out of the box, we have these nice features. You can inspect it to see what is behind the scene. So inspect this to see this is success, and you can see the particular type of HTML that has been used around it, right? With its color and all of them, right? Very cool. Okay. Then we can also move on from here to st. There is success, there is error, there is also some for exceptions in case you have an exception and you want to put, so type error or something. You can also put your exception there in case you have exceptions, and you can also specify a warning. So st.warning, which is a warning, right? So very nice. You can use these ones to do some cool stuff. These are the error elements. Let's move on from here, and then we can also work on inputs widget. So how does the input widget works? Streamlit supports all the different widgets, right? So there are different support. So let's start with the first one. So I can just go with first name, which is going to be st.test. Right, so if I go with test input, now it gives me the option of being able to enter a particular name. So the label means what you want the user to see, and you can also specify the maximum number of characters, and then you can also specify the type. Right, so if I go back here and I go down, as there we have first name, I can type in something and it's working, right? And you can also change it to a password element. So let's say this is password. So there is no password, right? Password input, but you can use the test input for password. So password, and then you can see that there is also an option here called a type. So you can specify the type. If I specify the type as a password, now if I type in something, you automatically see that we have this hide option here. If I type in my password, so 1 2 3 4 5, that it is hidden, which is a very cool feature from Streamlit, right? If I click on this, you can see the password there. Perfect. Let's move on from here to another widget. So we have simple test input, which is small, but what if you want it to be bigger, like a test area? You can just go back with, say, a message that you want to send to st.test area, and then you can also specify the same thing here. So the same with the test area, right? You can specify what you want it to be, right? The height of the test area and the value. Let's say some message, and now you can see that we have a bigger form here, right? We can also add date. So date, st.date input, in which you can put in a date. So it takes in, say, date of birth or date, and now we have this nice date user. Out of the box, we have this wonderful cool stuff, right? Automatically pick today's date in case you're watching from the future, and all of this is out of the box. You don't need to do anything. That is something nice about Streamlit. Cool. Let's move on from here to from date input. You can also, if you're working with date, you can also go with appointment time, which is going to be st.time input. So there is also a time input, and then you can put in, say, let's say appointment time. And if I go back here and I refresh, just as we had the date input, we also have time input, and then you can specify the time there, right? Which is out of the box. Wow. Cool. Okay, so let's go back and then let's check one more thing we can also do. We also have a number input. So st.number, you can give the number, so age, you can specify the maximum and the minimum. So minimum is 0, maximum is, say, 120, and then we have a number input which you can increase, or you can type in some value there and it works, right? Perfect. So all of these things, you can see that I'm storing it inside a variable. So since I'm storing it inside a variable, I can now use it over and over again. That is the beauty of it. Okay, so let's see another form of widget. So I can have another widget, like, let's say, gender. There's a radio button, so radio. Then I can pass in so gender, and then the 2, which is going to be in the format of a list or a tuple, so male and then female, right? And now we have this widget here with a radio button, right? Perfect. Not only radio button, you can also do toggle, right? Which is a new feature from Streamlit. So for the toggle, you can just say I want to enable some feature, so st.toggle, and then I can pass in something, so enable, let's say a picker, right? I go back here. Now we have this simple option here, which is similar to the radio button, but it's a toggle, right? Which goes this way. I can also add a checkbox. So to say we have age, gender. We can also say level, right? And can just go with st.checkbox, right? You can specify so level. So this is also another way. You can also do a checkbox, right? Perfect. Now let's see some very nice features we can also do, which is with the sliders. So we have the, in case I will have, let's say the countries I've visited. So countries, you can just go st.select box, and then here you can just specify the countries, and then you can pass in a list or a tuple of options. So it can be, let's say Ghana, so UK, India, Germany, US, right? Something like that, right? You can, so once I put it there, you see that we have a list that we can select, right? Which is very cool. Then we can also do multi-select. Instead of this only select one at a time, but I can also do multi-select, right? In which I can select multiple stuff. So I can say these are the programming languages. So programming languages, which we can do st.multi-select. Then I can pass in so programming language, and I can pass a list of, let's say, Python. Let me make it smaller so that everybody can see it well. Python, you have Go, Golang, Go, there is Julia, there is JavaScript, and the rest, right? There is Glim, there is Rust, there are so many languages, right? So now the difference between the select and the select box and the multi-select is that the select box is just one at a time, but with the multi-select I can select multiple stuff. So I can select JavaScript, and I can select a different one like Julia, right? Perfect. Okay, so how do we use these things? So we have a slider here. There's also one more. This is, I said sliders and selectors, right? So, which is still part of the input widget. There is also the option of slider, in which I can pass in a different level. So let's say rating, it can be st.slider, right? And I can pass in a particular rating. So let's say rating, and the slider takes a minimum value and then maximum value, which is 10. And now we have a slider you can slide. There is also not just a slider, but you can also have a ranking, which is another form of st.slider select, right? Select slider, which allows you to also use test, right? So let's say I have a ranking, so I can call it as like a ranking, and I'll put in a test, right? So let's say junior dev, then middle, mid dev, then senior dev, then let's say architect, right? Something like that. If I go with this, you see the difference between the slider and then the select slider, right? So this, so we have it in a very nice cool. All of this is out of the box. Streamlit has so many cool features. Wow, that's nice. Okay, so we are done with it. So how do we use them? As I said, we are storing them all into a variable, so I can actually use it. So for example, in case I want to combine what I've done so far, let's divide and put a line there, so I can just go with st.divider, and it will put a line here, right? Perfect. So I can just use the enable. So if enable, right, if the enable is true, this particular one, I want to write all that I've done, so I can just go with st.write. Then I can pass in a string in which I pass in the first name. So details, right, and then this is going to be the first name, right, and then the next one is going to be, let's say, the password, and then so forth, right? And now if I enable this one out, so that it's gone, right? If I click on this, you see that it has come back again. I can also add, let's say, color picker to it, st.color picker, which will give us a pick a color, and then I can put the color here, so color, and then I can just go back and do st.write the color. Now if I go back, enable, if I click on it, you can see that we have the option to pick a particular color. Hope you can see it, and then I can choose a color, right, and the color has changed, which gives us so many possibilities. Okay, so let's move on from here to some other things we can also do, right? So we are done with these features. Let's go on from here and to the other form of features that is left. We are done with the test features, the input widget, the error. Let's move on to the data and then the media, right? So let's go straight away to the media element. So let's go first to the data element. So for the data element, I said data. So for the data element, we have things like, in case you have a data set and you want to load. So I have pandas data set and I want to read it. So I can just go with, let's create a simple function to help us with that. So def load data. I'll pass in my data, which I'm going to return a pd.dataframe, right? And then I will now go back and then return pd.read_csv. I'll pass in my data. So let's import pd from panda from the top. So import pandas. Now as pd. So now I can come down here and I can read a particular data set, right? So in case I want to read the data, I can just go with load my data and I can pass in my data, right? Which is, let's say, the iris.csv, or I can pass in diamonds.csv, right? And I have to make sure that the data is in the right location. So I'll copy the two of the data. So 1, 2, copy this and place them here. You use them in the next session. And now if I save it, then okay, it can't find it, so let's check it out. The name of it was, let's see, okay, it was iris that we have, so let me call it as iris. If I go back and I check it out, you cannot see it, but to see the data you can just go with my st.dataframe. So data frame allows us to be able to load the data in a very nice option, and as you can see, we have the data frame. So in the previous version, some things were not available, right? You could not search. Now you can search for something. You said I have all my statuses selected. If I search for, let's say, Virginica or whatever name, so petal or something, so 1.3, right? So this is a very nice widget that comes out of the box and it gives you the results there, right? You can click on it. You can download out of the box the message out of the box. You can expand it. Very cool, right? And then you can also change the dimensions of it in case you want it to be bigger, right? Very cool. Okay, that is for loading the data. We can also use, this is a data frame which is very dynamic, right? But in case you want to be very fast, you can just go with the table. And let's say I want to just get the first head. Let's paste the first two. And this is stuck to it, right? Unlike the data frame that has a lot of features, this is just stuck, right? There's a two difference. You can also edit this data in case you want to edit. So let's go to edited edited data or df. You can use the st.data editor. Then you can pass in your data frame, right? And it gives you the option of specifying some various column configurations in case you want to beautify it, which we will not go through it, but you can check it out. If I come down here, we have a different data frame. So you could see that this is the default one. And this one comes with the option that we can type in here something, right? And then we can save it, right? You can edit, modify some stuff, and it has the same features there, right? Which gives a lot of features or a lot of possibility. Okay, that is for the data element. So we have seen how to work with data frames, data editor. There is also the option of, let's say, st.json, as we saw earlier on, in which you can pass in the data as you wish. So df.to.json, and then you get all the data in JSON, right? Which you can also do. All of them, these are all part of the data element. Okay, let's see some other stuff you can also do, right? So we are done with some of the features with the data element. With the data element also, in case you have a database, right? So this is a connection to DB. You can also do, in case you have a database, so we have st.connection, in which you, in case you have a database, you can also connect to it, right? Connect to the database and specify the language and do some interesting things with it, right? So this is also another thing you can also do. Okay, let's move on from here to the media element. So for the media element, that means we want to be able to load some data, right? So this media element. So how do we work with images and with the rest, right? So to work with images, you can just go, in case I have an image, I can just go with image, then st.image, then I can pass in my image. So I have some image example here. So image example.png. If I save it, let's hide these ones because to take a little space. Come down there, you see you have a very nice image here, right? That is how to work with the image. You don't need to even open it. You can open it and load it there, but this is enough. In case I also have an audio file and I want to open, so audio, I can just first of all open the audio file. So we can open the audio file as let's go to this audio file. Then I can open it with any file that is available. So intro.mp3, and I can specify the format, so read byte. Then I can now load it. So st.audio, passing my audio file. Then we can just read it as byte, right? So read. And if I come down here, we have it here, right? So I don't know whether you hear. Right, so you can see that it's playing. You can download it, you can play back, and the rest. Perfect. In case you also have video, so this is video. In case you have video, you can also do the same thing. Video, you can paste in the particular video that you want and the format, and then you can also specify that you want to have subtitle, right? You're also going to get a subtitle, and you can also specify that you want a caption for the image also. So for the image, I can also give it a caption, specify the width, and then use column weight, means use the entire weight of it, right? I can specify a caption here. So image in Streamlit, so we have a caption there, right? Perfect. That is for the video. Now, since we are still working with media element, there is also one input that is very useful. In case I have a picture, I want to take a picture of myself, I can just go with st.camera input, and then I can paste in, let's say, take a picture, take a photo. I save it like that, and I get this option here. So allow this time. You see that it's going to automatically use my camera. So I need a camera because I already have my camera on. That's why I'm not seeing it. But I go down here, you see that my camera, so allow her to access. I have different cameras, right? I have the one that you are seeing, but in case I stop that camera, I can click on this and then you see it here, right? Very nice. So I don't know whether I can stop my camera. Let's see if I can stop this, and let's try it again. So let's refresh. Yeah, because I have another camera, so that's why it's misbehaving. Yeah. Okay, so that is how to work with the camera, right? And you can also, when you are working with the foot camera input, you can do a lot of things. You can save the image, right? So you can do something like this. So if you can put a button, st.button, then I can just say take a picture. So take a picture, and I can put this one here under, right? And then if I save it now, I have always run. I have a button that if I click on it, now the picture is taken, right? So you can also use this particular option, and then you can save it. So in case you want to save it, you can just save the image, right? So this is going to come as a buffer. So you can just do pick.get buffer, right? So this is how to save it in case you want to save it, right? You just write, so let's say with open some parts, right? And then write byte, and then as f, then f dot, this is just a sample example, so f dot write, then I'll pass in the pick, right, dot get buffer or get value, and then I can something like this. In case you don't want to use this, you can also use the image here. So you can also do f dot the pick dot name, right, because that is also one way that you get the name that is taken, right? You can also do something like this to read it, right? So that is something out of the box to help you in case you want to save an image that is taken, right, using this option here. Okay, so that is for the media element. Let's go back one more to another form of media. So in case you want to do downloads and then uploads, how do you work with uploads? So to upload something in Streamlit, just go with file upload, right? And then just go with st.file uploader. Then here you can specify the label, you can specify the type of file you want to accept, and the rest. So let's specify the label. So let's say upload CSV, right? And I'll specify the allow file types. So, or you can also accept multiple files, right? So I can drop multiple files at the same time. You can also specify the type. If I go with the type, which is going to be a string, so I can just go with CSV, and now we have only CSV, right? You can also specify the limit, right? And then once you download it, so if the file uploaded, you can just do whatever you want to do. So write, this is a CSV file, so I can just go pd.read underscore CSV, then I'll pass in the file upload, right? So something like this. Then I can upload. Let's load a CSV. This is a lot of code, so let's pick one from here. Diamonds, open. Now, so now it has loaded the file, right? So I uploaded the file, and then it has read it for us. It's coming as a byte IO, so you can just read it straight away out of the box, right? Like a file out of the box. That is for the uploads. In case you also want to download, you can also do the same thing. So you can say this is already giving us the option of download, but in case you want to download something, you can just do it st.download button. Then you can just pass in the label, so download, right? And then you pass in your file, so whatever file that you want to download, and it's supposed to be of a particular type. So let's go to say iris the CSV. If I go back, I can click on it, and then you see how we have some download, right? You can modify the download as you wish. Okay, perfect. So let's move on from here. We are done with most of the cool features of Streamlit. Wow, that is 30 minutes. So let's go from here to the chat element, and then you go to the status element. Okay, let's go to the status element first. So for the status element, this is example of elements like so you want to show a status when you are doing something, right? That is the basic idea. So one of them is I can just go with st.spinner, so that if I'm doing something, I can say thinking, and then I can just do st.write something. So hello, right? If I go with this, you can see that it was fast, right? It was very fast, but this is mostly useful for computative thing that takes a lot of time. So I can just import time.sleep, and then let's say 0.02 seconds. Let's import time to simulate a long running function. So import time. If I go back here, now if I refresh it, so now I wanted to show it to you. So let's make it 2 seconds. So always run. And it is so fast that we can't even see that it's working, right? It is so fast, right? So this is one of the ways, right? Spinner. You can also use the spinner to spin some stuff there. Or for example, like something like you have a button that I click on something. So if st.button, oh, that is something I know. So there is also the option of buttons. If you can create a button with a label. So let's say compute, right? And then you can also put some things here. Right? So if I click on this, it was so fast. You can see that it's moving. I hope you could see it, right? So you can also use buttons together with the spinner in case you have something that is time consuming. There is also st.progress, right, in which you can also have a progress bar, and then you put in some tests. So this is in progress or progressing. Then you can just put in your time progressive stuff or something that takes a lot of time. Then you can see that it's going, and then move on, right? So it's giving us an option, but there is a way you can also do that, right, for the progress bar. And there is also for toast, right? So st.toast, you can also give a toast which takes in a body and an icon of something, so a string. So and then if I go back here, so down, this is a toast, right? So this is also a very nice feature which came later on in the future, which is very nice, right? So there's a lot of things you can also do with it. Okay, let's move on from here to, we're done with most of them. Let's move on to the chat element and then the layout, right? So for the chat element, this is very useful in case you are working with LLMs. So in case you are working with large language models, right? So very useful for LLMs, right? UI. So large language model UI is very useful. How does it work? So the idea behind this is that you just, the two main ones are this, or there are three. Actually, there are three. The first one is you can just go with prompt, right? st.chat input. And with the chat input, I can type in so as something, right? And you can specify the maximum number of characters, the key, and then the rest. And then you can say that if there is a prompt, we want to do something, right? So this is the simplest one, so pass. If I go back here and I refresh, now you see that we have this as something here in which I can type in something, right? If I click on it, it goes. Now I can save that particular prompt and use it for something. So let's use that prompt inside our next chat element called st.chat message. So I can just go with my message, just with st.chat message. Then I can pass in, here you can pass in a name or an avatar, which can be an emoji. So it can be user, assistant, AI, human, or string, right? And then I can come down here and I can just write my prompt message here. So we can say you typed this particular prompt. Right. So now if I come down here and I type in this is cool, you can see that we have it here, right? You type this is cool, right? So that is the chat element. This is very, very useful, very cool, right? You can also combine these things to it. You can combine with st thinking before you bring this one out, right? For example, let's combine it. So I can say with st.spinner, then thinking, right? And then I can just put in whatever text I want. So let's say time.sleep. In case you have an LLM somewhere, you can put it there. So let's go with 0.2 seconds. Then I can just write in my response. And then let's pass in some random text for Streamlit. Right. And then I can now return this one. So if I save it, and then let's see. If I come down here and I say, okay, Streamlit, and then there is also Tapai, and then there is Gradio, there is also Solara, there is Palette, no, Palette or, yeah, I've forgotten, Panel. So there are so many, but Streamlit is very cool. And there's Tapai, there's Gradio, Solari, Panel, right? There are so many. And then you can see that we have some tests, some random tests, and it was very fast, right? You could not see it running, but it was fast because it was 0.2 seconds. Let's try it again. Streamlit, Panel, Radio, Tapai. There is also Solara. There is a nice guy. You can see that now thinking is going, and you have our test. One more thing for the chat element is what we call the stream, right? This is also very important. So streaming response, which is very useful. How do we do that? So the idea for the streaming response that you need a generator, right? And then some text, right? Some text or something, right? Some text or data. So that is the most important thing. So you need a generator function to help us with the stream data. So the simple one we can do that, I can create a function here. So let's go back here and create a simple function for the stream data. I pass in the data that I want to stream, right? And then I can just say for a word in my data dot split. I'm just now use yield, right? Since it's a generator word, yeah, yielding a word at a time. I'm going to add it to empty space, right? Then we can now simulate sleep, right? So that it comes to one at a time. So this is useful for let's give a float of 0.02, right? This is useful for typing or the typewriter effect, right? This is for typewriter effect. Typewriter effect. This is useful for typewriter effect. So in case I want to do that, right? Now instead of using the Streamlit write, I can just go with Streamlit write stream, and then I'll pass in my stream data, right? And then that's it. So now if I run it and I type in some text, so cool. Okay, see that now it's thinking. So now the character scheme. So let me pick a lot of text. So let's pick all of this text and then put it here. Right, some long text that we can use without this. So something longer. See how the text is going down here. How do we do that? So we are using this option here, and then if I type in hello thinking, you can see that now the text is coming one at a time, right? So this is a very nice feature, right? I can move this one out of here in case I don't want it to be here. I can move it out of here and then put it here, and it will still work. So I go back here, so now we have the text coming. If I refresh, so now the text is coming, right? So that is the streaming test, right? Very cool, very nice. I can use a button. So if button st.button, I can say okay, stream test stream. So let's always run. Now if I click on stream, so now it is going down, right? So these are some of the features of Streamlit now. Very cool features, right? So you're done with most of them. Let's go to the layout and then the utils, right? So before we go to the layout, there's also one nice feature for the expanders, right? So I'll call them as expanders, which is part of the layout. So this is the layout, right? So the layout goes with, as we have here, we have tabs. You can do tabs, you can do columns, you can do container, expander, popover, dialog. So in case I want to work with the tabs, in case I have the idea behind the tabs is as the name goes. In case you want to do a tab, you can do the same thing. In case you want to do container, you can do the container. So let's see an example of a tab. So an example of a tab, this is tabs, right? Is that, and bring it here. Let's put a divider to separate all of them up. So an example of a tab is like this. So you can say I have a home tab and then an about tab, right? Then this will go with st.tabs. Then inside here I'll specify the name of it, so home, and then about. If I save it, now we see that we have a simple tab here in which I can click on it, right, and it's changing. I can now say with my home tab, I want you to put some, let's say, subheader. This is a home tab, right? If I go back here and I click on this, so we have this a home tab, and then I can also repeat it for the about tab, right? So this is about tab. You can put a lot of code there, not just this simple one, right? So this is home, this is about, right? I can even put a data frame here, data frame, putting our df there, and then if I come down here, we see that we have it here, which is very useful to hide stuff. Very cool, right? So that is for the tabs. We can also use columns. So tabs is one this way. We can also use columns in Streamlit. So it is going to be columns. With the columns, same idea. What we will do is that we just go with, let's say I have column 1, column 2, and then st.columns, right? And the columns takes in your specs, right? So it can be, let's say I want, let's say I want 2 columns, or I want 3 columns, or I want 2 and 1, right? So I can just do 2. So because I have to unpack it, so 1, 2, right? If I do 3, this is supposed to be equivalent, so column 3, right? And then once we do that, we can now do 2 ways. You can use the context manager approach, which is like with column, that is all the width. Then I can say, right, so this is one way. And then, or I can just go with the other approach, which is column 2, the normal approach. And this column here inherits from all the features we have done, most of the features we have done in Streamlit. So I can put my data frame here, right? And I can pass in my data, And I see that we have 1 column here, 2 column here, right? And then I can also add another one. So let's say in case I have an image or whatever picture I have, so I can put in an image, right? And I can pass in our image there. So image example.png, right? So, and if I open it, it is very responsive. See that we have there is one for the tabs here, for the column for the image here, and you see that this one came down. You can also say that, okay, use column width, set it to true, and it's going to use the column width in case it has some width there, right? So that is some of the things you can do. I do want to just use 2. Let's use 2, right? Then, oh, okay, the reason it failed, I hope you notice why it failed. Because we specified that this is supposed to be under column 2, it was now under column 2. But in case I want it to be in column 3, now we have it here. So 1, 2, 3, right? Which is very, very useful, very nice. So I can have multiple of them, right? And position them well. Perfect. That is for the columns. Let's move on from the columns to one more that we can do, which is like a container, right? So we can use a container. The container is very simple, something like this. So this is how the container works. So for the container, all you do is that you can just say container, then st.container. Then you can just give it something like this, right? So now this is a container, right? And then with this container I can do something. So let's say I can write some documents with some container. So now we have a container with some text there, right? In case you want to put a border around this container, you can do that by specifying that border is equal to true. And now you see that we have a container with some text and some border around it, right? So which is a very useful feature. Okay, let's see one more thing we can also do. So we can combine all that we have done into one, right? So let's see how we can combine them. I'm going to combine all that we have done so far into one. So let's combine all of them to generate something useful. So I'm going to combine this. So I'm creating 2 columns, right? 1 column, and I'm going to loop through the column. Then when I loop through the column, I'm using the container, and then I'm specifying some features, right? So now we have this nice thing. So these are different columns and containers, all of them used together, right? Very cool. Let's finally end with the expanders. So this is expanders. This is still part of the layout. So in case I want to hide some of these things I've been doing, I can just go with st.expander, and then I can just say, okay, right. And then I can put in all that I've done. So I can put in some data frame there and hide it, right? Or put in some image there. And now if I see the expander is here, if I click on it, it is more friendly and nice, right? You can also use popover. So with the popover, it just goes with this. So it's same like the expander, pop over, and I can say pop over. Then I can also pass in something there. So I want to pass in an image. I can pass in, say, image example.png, and now we have our expander, and we have our pop over with some image, right? Which is very cool. Right, so you can have image popping over. So you can use to do a lot of things. You can even combine the columns that you have and then use it with the popover, right? Cool. Okay. Wow, that is almost 1 hour. Yeah, done with most of them. There is also dialog which is coming, but it's not yet current in this version, but it's going to appear later in the future. Let's move on from there to some other aspect of Streamlit which I forgot to talk about, which is plots, right? Streamlit has so many nice things for plots, so we can try it out with a plot. So this is going to be our last session. So plots. So how do you work with plot? So to work with plot, you can just have our data that you want to plot. So there's a simple one called, say, have area chart, and I'll pass in my data that I want to plot. So let's say I have a data frame, and I can pass in the x-axis for this our data frame. So let's go to based on what we had here, we had separ length. So I can just paste in some of this data just to copyright. That's the data we are using, and then can go with the y-axis, petal length. Now if I go back and I check it out, we have a very nice plot, right? So this is the area chart. I can use a different chart. So there is area chart. I can do line chart. So we have a line chart. I can do scatter or bar chart, right? And as you can see, there are different charts. I can do scatter. In case you also are fond of matplotlib, there is also the feature for that, st.pyplot. There's pyplot, in which in case you can also plot your figure, in case you have a figure that you want to plot. So let's say plot kind, let's go to bar. Yeah, this will not work well. Yeah, it will not work well. Yeah, because that's not a good plot. I can just use the species column, and then I can just do dot value count. Yeah, let's see. Right. So yeah, you need a better way to do this, right? You have to put this inside the figure and then plot it out and down, blah blah blah. So that is also one you can also do. Then we can also have st.pyplot. In case you have pyplot, you can also plot it there. You pass in the data, and then you do your pyplot, or you have your plotly, not pyplot. You can do plot for plotly. You can also do for alter. You can also do for maps, in case you have maps data. You can also do for bouquet. Right, so there are so many, right? So there are so many plots you can do in Streamlit. Perfect. Thank you for watching this long tutorial. I hope you have learned something. So this is a excellent tutorial on so many features of Streamlit. And in case you also want more information, you can just go back. For example, in case I want to know how to use this exploit, you can just go with st.help. I'll pass in the st.pyplot or any Python function. And then if I check it out, it's going to give me how to run it, right? So this is a very useful utility function. So this is how to run it, give you new examples of how to run the plot, right? Out of the box with the st.help. Of course, there are a lot of features. If I go with, again, st.write, there are st, can see all the various things you can do with Streamlit here. So there are so many features, right? More features. There's even form. Yeah, this is something I forgot. So the form input is also very important. So can do with st.form, then give it a key. So let's say my form, right? And then you can just pass in your input. So all this input that we have in here, like this, you can put these inputs inside the form. But the thing with using a form is that you need a submit button. So now I can just go with let's say my button, st.submit, form submit button, right? So they say submit. Now we have it here, right? So we have a form. So whatever I'm going to do is going to be within this particular form, and I can submit it, right? Very cool. So there are many things. There's so many there is even the option of working with HTML, right, which is coming in the future, which comes from the component st. So from Streamlit or import. There is component.v1. Then we can go stc.html in case you have HTML. So p tag or whatever HTML that you have there. So p. So you can also do that here. You can say that this is HTML, which is something you can also do. And then there is iframe also. Right, you can say there's iframe in case you want to put another website there. There is also st.link, link button, right, in which you can pass in a URL. So let's say http JCharisTech.com. I save it. Now we have, I think, I forgot this. So it takes in the position URL, and it must also take in, it takes in the label and a URL. So let's say visit. Now we have a button. So if I click on it, I'm automatically redirected to another website, right? Which is very cool, very, very cool. There are so many features, right, in Streamlit. And that is very, very cool, right? So there's echo, there's divider, as we saw earlier on. There is so many, right? You can also change the configurations. There is also session state in case you also want to work with session state. So st.session state, which is like a dictionary. There's st.cache data and cache resource also, which you can also use, right? So thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you have explored this wonderful framework, and let me see what you can build with it. So I've gone through all of these wonderful pieces of Streamlit, and then you can also check the official documentation, can check the community page for more, right? So many things here, you can check for more, and then you can also check the forums or any of these places. You can also check the gallery. You can also deploy Streamlit straight away into Streamlit Cloud, which is very, very useful, right? Thank you for watching. See you another time. Stay blessed.